Rodney Fong, thanks for joining us today. What exactly do you do here at the Movieland Wax Museum?
I am in charge of all the marketing and advertising for the museum here, and oversee the operations within the museum.
Tell us about this set we're on right now.
We're in the set of Ben-Hur with Carson. This was one of the first sets in Movieland that was built in 1963, and as you can see, it's a full-scale set. There must be about 15 people in here with us, and 4 horses.
Now, did he come himself to see his wax figure?
I believe he wasn't here for the unveiling, but he has been to the museum and has given his approval.
Now, what about these horses? Tell us about these.
These are original horses that were built for the set and brought in. As you can see, they all resemble each other. It could be brothers or sisters.
So these are real?
These are real horses.
Tell us what your day-to-day activities are. What exactly do you do with this museum and the other one that you have?
Most of the day is spent with working on getting tour groups and some individuals and bus groups into the museum, and selling prepackaged type tours. And I work personally with the operations and accounting departments. Make sure that with the maintenance department that built that this show is at show quality 100% of the time.
Now you have 2 locations?
Right. Here in Buena Park and in San Francisco at Fish and Resort.
How many wax figures do you have here in total?
There are about 300 wax figures here. And San Francisco has about 275 wax figures.
And are they mainly actors or politicians, or what do you have here?
Movieland really specializes in movies. We have all the classics from Humphrey Bogart to Marilyn Monroe. And there's a little bit of television, but mostly movies. And the museum in San Francisco is sort of a scrapbook of world history. It has political leaders, religious section, King Tut section. So it's really, wax museums sort of are time capsules of history.
And how do you decide who to make a wax figure of? Is there a committee that meets, or a popular vote, or what happens?
We take suggestions from our guests. We have meetings monthly within our crew here to decide who's popular and who we think has longevity as far as immortalizing themselves in wax.
So, can you take us through the process of, let's say once you decide on somebody, for instance, let's say Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
You decide you want to do that. What happens next?
Okay, we try to set up a meeting with the star. The initial meeting is actually for photographing and taking measurements, and they take very intricate measurements from, let's say, the width of your head to the depth of your nose and how far your ears are apart and what color eyes you have. And from those photos and measurements, they'll go back into the wax room and start to sculpt in the form of clay. Once that clay is done, then they cast that into plaster, which creates a negative form of that. And then they pour wax into the plaster mold. So it's kind of a 3-step positive, negative, positive process. Once the wax is completed, then eyes can be inserted, teeth can be inserted, and each hair individually has to be implanted. So it's a painstaking task, but it's well worth it when in the final product.
How long does it take from the time you decide to start to its completion?
About 3 months. 3 months lead time.
And then after a wax figure is completed, do the stars come out and help unveil it?
And probably 75% of the time, stars are very busy, but 75% of the time they do find time to come out and do this. We had Michael Jackson here, Gloria Estefan, Dick Clark, who hosts American Bandstand out here.
I heard that Michael Jackson came in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's correct. He chose to come at about midnight with his crew, and wanted to personally take a look at the figure. In fact, we made a second copy of the figure for himself personally, for his own home or home use.
So he has a wax figure that you made in his home.
Correct.
What did he think about it?
Oh, he loved it. In fact, the costume, the outfit that we have on the figure, he donated. So he brought that in.
So that's his real costume.
That's right.
Any others that you can think of that came by?
Shira Mafuni came by. That's his actual wardrobe that he brought. And it was a fairly large ceremony here, and he was able to come in and dress the figure himself properly. So.
How many visitors do you see here in a typical year?
In Movie Land here we see about 200,000 people. The bulk of that is during the summer months, but there's about in attendance about 200,000.
Of those, 200,000 people, how many are tourists from foreign countries or local people? What's the breakdown?
Probably half are foreigners, international travelers. Of that half, most of them, or half of them come from tour groups on vacation, pleasure vacation. There are a lot of Japanese businessmen who come here for technical tours of Orange County, and so they find time during the evening or afternoon to come by and see us.
After, do you end particular exhibits, or for instance, if a movie came out in 1975 or something and people have forgotten about it, do you quietly get rid of certain figures?
Right. We are actually constantly changing exhibits, and we find ways to reuse figures and kind of distort them and change them into something else for background people or guests in the scene.
Could you give us an idea of some maybe that are not around anymore?
Well, in fact, right around the corner is Johnny Carson in the Spartacus set, and he has been turned into a spectator.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Rodney, what are some of your favorite personal figures here at the museum? What are some of the customers' favorites?
The most popular exhibits are probably Marilyn Monroe, Gene Kelly, and Singing in the Rain. One of our most recent and most popular figures is Tom Selleck. Superman is a fantastic set. Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. These are all classic movies that people just love to see over and over.
Now, are people allowed to take photographs in here?
Yep. Video and photographs are allowed. And, I don't know if you know, when you come in, you have an opportunity to take a photograph with George Burns, which is processed here and available when you exit the tour.
Now, tell us how you got involved in this business, because you're obviously very young to be, a vice president in charge of 2 museums. How did you get involved?
This is actually a family-owned operation. My grandfather, in 1963, opened the Wax Museum in Fisherman's Wharf. And we purchased Movie Land about 15 years ago. So this is the 3rd generation in this business, and sort of grew up in the business, and we're running around these sets, working on them.
As a kid?
As a kid, yeah.
What do you like about it? What do you like about this job that you have?
What I like about it is we are really in the show business. We're in the entertainment business, and it's like working in the backside of a theater, and you prepare it to present something, and to see the public pleased and have a good time with it is really, that's the gratification. It's like working behind the scenes.
So your grandfather and your father and now you all were in the same business.
Right.
Did your grandfather begin in San Francisco?
Yeah.
And then you moved down here?
Right.
What do you think his goals were when he created the museums?
Probably similar to mine in that pleasing the public was, and presenting a show that was entertaining and something for the whole family, wasn't strictly for adults or strictly for children. And at Movie Land, it's very nostalgic. People can step back into their past and relive the moments of when they first saw a scene like this on TV.
What kind of reactions do you see from customers after they've completed the tour here?
Very interesting. With wax figures, Part of the fun is people critiquing the figures, and really whether they feel that that figure looks like the actual star or not is still the fun. So even if they feel it doesn't look like them, it's still entertaining for them to personally critique it.
Mm. Well, tell us the truth, Rodney. Are there some that look really good, and are there some that don't quite look like the star?
Yep. Well, that's true. There's some 10s and there's some 6s.
Well, can you give us a couple of 10s and a couple of 6s?
The Superman Christopher Reeves, I think, is a 10. From the King and I set, Yul Brynner is a 10. I won't mention that.
But there are some that didn't come out quite like you wanted them to come out.
Yeah. And we're always able to rework them if we feel that it's not really a 10.
Talk about the people who are making these wax figures. They're here on the location?
Right. We have one person here in Buena Park who does wax sculpting, and we have 2 other people in San Francisco who do sculpting.
And they do this full time?
Correct.
So, for instance, right now, how many are these 3 people working on? How many wax figures?
We have about six figures in the works right now. So they sort of rotate and are able to work at them.
Are there any that we would know that they're working on?
Little Richard is in the works. Oprah Winfrey. Let's see, Gina Davis. And Pierce Brosnan, 007 is in the works. We're also doing a wax figure of Jim Carrey. And for our San Francisco show, Microsoft.
Oh, Bill Gates?
Bill Gates.
So Bill Gates isn't exactly a movie, an actor.
No, but for San Francisco, he's going to become a historical figure in the world, I believe.
Now, why did you decide to make a figure of Toshiro Mifune, the Japanese actor?
Well, he's probably one of the most popular Japanese actors, and his popularity in America is really quite surprising.
Really? Now, do you have people commenting on that one coming through?
Yeah, I think most people are familiar with him. First of all, his wardrobe is gorgeous, and people appreciate that.
And he donated his own wardrobe, is that
correct?
Yeah. And he came here.
He was here to dress the wax figure himself, fix hair.
What do you think this tells us about our culture? That Americans love to, kind of almost worship these wax figures.
Yeah, I think for America, wax figures and movie stars are almost like royalty, and so we treat them like that. And when someone becomes immortalized in wax, it really says something. It really says you've made it to a certain level of status and worthy of being immortalized in a museum.
Are people coming here, to worship their figures, or are they just coming to take a look at them? I mean, what do you see?
Well, quite a few people who are great fans of, say, Elvis, who want to come in and just see Elvis, and they will spend most of their time at that one set. And,
Is that right?
Come through the rest of the museum, but there's some very loyal fans who come.
Why did you guys choose this location for a museum?
Well, we're right in Buena Park, which is next to Anaheim. It's about 5 minutes away from Disneyland, and as you know, Disneyland is a destination for the world. We're here in Buena Park on the entertainment corridor, which is Beach Boulevard. And Knott's Berry Farm is right down the street, Medieval Times and Wild Bill. So it's really a destination for entertainment.
Do you have plans to take this concept of a museum with wax figures to other countries?
We just this last summer did a kind of a testing and set up a temporary museum in Manila, and so it was a tremendous response there in the Philippines, and we are looking at sites in Japan, Korea, Malaysia, and looking at maybe doing some sort of world tour with these figures.
And you said that you have had some experience in Japan?
Right. We set up a temporary show for about 3 months in a department store in Tokyo. This was about 3 years ago, so it was very successful.
But no plans for a big museum? Huh?
Not yet.
You mentioned you have a sort of a way of making a decision on who to bring in. do you take into account, for instance, if a star has had a scandal, or does that affect? I mean, would you possibly remove a figure someday if somebody were to be a part of a large scandal?
It works both ways for us. A scandal is also it makes the figure more popular. We had O.J. Simpson in the museum during his whole trial, and so we eventually took him out.
Is that right?
But O.J. was here, and people were pleased and displeased with seeing him.
So you had comments from people?
Yeah.
Also, it seems when a star passes away, do you have crews and people that come when that happens?
Yeah, in fact, Gene Kelly just passed away, and we had a news crew that was out here and wanted to get a segment of him. We always pay our respects to the family, and we put some sort of notice in the set during the time of his death.
Have you ever had a star who said, "No way, I don't want to participate, I want to have nothing to do with this"?
No, and if someone does say that, we honor them, and we don't make their wax figure. But for the most part, they're very cooperative.
How do they have to cooperate? What kind of cooperation do you need from a star?
If they can sit down with us and do a measurement session, and if they would like to come out and actually unveil the figure, it works very well if a movie star is promoting a new movie that's coming out, and they come out and are able to have the press here with them.
So I noticed a figure of President Clinton. Does that mean that you measured President Clinton?
That was strictly from photographs, unfortunately.
So you had to reconstruct
Right.
what he would look like.
We'd be willing to have Mr. Clinton out here.
Have you heard anything from him about his figure? Has he commented on it?
I don't believe. I know we sent him some photos, but I haven't heard anything back from him personally.
What are your future plans? Eventually you will be obviously the full owner here. What are your ideas and dreams and plans with where you want to take this?
Well, we are always looking at expanding here, and we have more space within the building that we're looking at setting up new exhibits, possibly some Hall of Fame type exhibits. So, and always constantly changing the sets here and figures here.
So can we expect your son to someday be in charge?
Hopefully so.
You also have a store here. What exactly do you sell in that store?
We have two gift shops here that sell souvenirs and memorabilia of movie land and movie-related items. So it's within the complex itself.
This is a strange question, but do you have to update, like figures? For instance, let's say there's one of Julia Roberts.
Right.
What's going to happen in 30 years when she's a little bit older?
We're able to update and bring them up to date as far as reworking hair and wax, and we do change hairstyles and clothing in some cases.
What about the case of Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson, we have followed Michael Jackson's evolution, and this is actually our fourth figure of him, and as he changes his image, we follow along with him and update him.
So you have a plastic surgeon here for him as well?
That's a wax surgeon.
A wax surgeon. In your experience, is there a difference in perceptions of wax figures between Asian peoples and the American culture?
I think here in America, they readily accept it when they're on vacation. How a museum would do in Tokyo, I'm not quite sure. I've heard that in the Asian culture, if a wax figure is made of yourself, it sort of takes away your spirit. I don't know if people are nervous about that, but I don't think that's necessarily the case or the problem.
So in the American culture, there's absolutely no stigma. People think this is just a wax figure. There's no spiritual or attachment.
But maybe in the Asian culture, they're afraid if when they pass on, maybe their spirit can't find, is not sure which direction to go to, the way of the wax figure or the actual person.
Do you ever, when you walk around here at night, do you ever hear any ghosts or,
I haven't heard any ghosts, but I tell you, it is a little bit eerie when you walk around here in the dark. Luckily, I've only had to do it a couple times, but if you're not familiar with who is where, someone can't stutter you. Some wax figure can't stutter.
How long does it take to go through the entire tour, from walking in the door to the end?
It's about a 1 hour tour. Yes, from the very beginning. Some people like to really take their time and spend an hour and a half in here, but you can see it in about an hour.
And in what sort of ways can the guests interact with the stars? Is there some way they can get photos together, or?
You can take photos of the wax figures, of the sets. Outside we have actual star prints, which is hand and footprints of stars that have been here. And any star that does come, we try to get their print.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many movie sets are here at the location?
There are over 117 movie sets here, and they're all full-size sets, all lighted as if they were a movie set. So it's
Thanks for joining us today.